By now, we've all heard a lot about Claude, Claude Cowork, and Claude Code, but the question is, are you using them? And if you are you using them to the best of their abilities? I'm Alex Jonathan Brown, Senior Content Strategist here at Iron Horse, and welcome back to Full Steam, or welcome in if it's your first time joining us. Today's episode is a little different, mainly because we weren't sure we were going to put it out. We recorded it as our pilot, and then it turns out the conversation we had was really good. Our guest on this episode is Samir Mehta, our Chief Product and Innovation Officer here at Iron Horse. And this is such a pilot. We dive into everything about Claude and Claude Code and how we're using Cowork at Iron Horse specifically. But it's such a pilot that we forgot to do an introduction for it. So we're going to join in media res. It's a great conversation, and hopefully you learn a lot and can learn from what we're doing at Iron Horse. One of the big things about, we're diving into it, one of the big things about Claude Cowork is that a lot of what it can do is based on the permissions you give it. So like, if you're unfamiliar, I'll do the quick introduction to people who may not be, and then Samir, you correct me and let me know where it's wrong. But Claude Cowork is basically the sort of agentic version of the Claude AI that started as a real direct competitor to OpenAI's ChatGPT. For a long time, it was a browser window that you could like click stuff in. Now it's an app that can really run stuff on its own. So in a theoretical world, I think Claude Cowork could pay my bills if I wasn't worried that it would mess up. And so obviously, if it can pay my bills, a lot of people are very excited about what it can do for their business. And that's why we wanted to chat today.
It's truly something that even the Claude team, if you kind of listen to the lead engineer, it's kind of Boris, and how they came up with it, they actually told Claude Code, we want to develop this thing. And I believe he was on like a Y Combinator podcast, and he was like, it was like 7 days, like basically just had Claude Code build out Claude Cowork. At the end, I believe there was some level of human review of the code, but that from product requirements document to building the code and shipping was about a 7 to 8 day exercise. So that kind of like, if you think about how quickly they came up with this product, now it's built on the underpinnings of Claude Code. So, naturally, a lot of it was there, but building this whole kind of product out, soup to nuts, and releasing it and seeing its adoption. Not saying that that's what caused the Claude sort of outage yesterday, but you got to believe that it's definitely driving things in mass adoption. I mean, ChatGPT, Gemini are still way more massively popular. The apps have been downloaded like 1 billion times on like Apple and Android. Claude has historically, Anthropic has historically focused on the enterprise segment. And what Claude Code has done for developers, Claude Cowork is doing for knowledge workers.
And and I think the kind of pool of knowledge workers, if we're using that comparison, feels so much bigger. And like, I'm a person who's like relatively tech aligned, but I'm not a coder. And as much as I kind of wanted Claude to sit down in front of Claude Code and be like, hey, I was just never able to like get over that hump of like actually starting to make something that felt like I was building something. Whereas with Claude Code, because it is geared toward this wider pool of people who are doing fundamentally different things than what's happening over on Claude Code, this feels so much more accessible in a way that like really can, and I think we've seen it a couple times here at Iron Horse, but really can change the way you think about doing your work and the way that like your work gets accomplished. With that being said, we have a lot of knowledge workers here at Iron Horse in a lot of different ways, whether that's on the marketing ops team or the content team, or BDRs and our sales efforts or client engagement efforts. So as a person who's kind of helping us think through all of that, if somebody's just thinking about getting like into this, if this is the first you're hearing of this, what's a good like proof of concept to like
Yeah.
dive in and start messing around with this?
I like in a weird meta type of way. If you've used, let's say you've been using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini as your assistant, like your kind of AI assistant, you put prompts in there. And if you've been using any of those for even like a few months at this point, they've gotten to know you. They've gotten to understand kind of the things that you do, the things that you do a lot of, the things that maybe you do infrequently, the things that you're not happy with. And so I used to answer this question and be like, "Oh, here's like the experiment you should go run." I've actually changed my response literally in the last 2 days because Alex, I know you and I kind of know the things that you do, and I can kind of give you some prescriptive ideas based on what you do. But the thing that you value the most may not be the thing that I value the most. And so, in that meta way, I'd almost actually have you prompt or ask whatever tool that you're predominantly been using on the AI search assistant side to say, hey, I just got access to Cloud Cowork. It's pretty wild. I know it's very powerful and capable. Um, but based on what you know of me and the things that I do over the last N months, help me like build a list of things that I could use Claude Cowork for that would actually like save me time or make my work better. Like actually do that. And then from there, I think you have like a small list that you can then curate it to say, okay, those are kind of interesting. How hard or how much effort do I need to invest to kind of make this a reality? And I think like with all AI, it's not like one shot and you're done. It is still, I'd say one of the most important, but probably under um, sort of sort of undernoted qualities is persistence. So you sort of have it's kind of I don't know if you've ever played video games and you're always trying to get to like the next level, you have to have that level of persistence. Your character dies over and over again, and I feel like building in Claude Cowork or even Claude Code is that like level of persistence and trying different tacks. And so, in some ways, it's a little fun. It's almost addictive to some degree. On the flip side, it can be for some other people who are not wired like that. It can be really nerve wracking. So I think you have to pick at one or two ideas that really will, either like you're like I could never build an app before, now I can actually build an app and like use it even for myself or use it like share it with some colleagues or friends, like whatever can give you that spark to continue. That's kind I know it sounds like all metaphysical, but to me I think that's what matters. I think is finding that individual thing that you care about that will give you fuel to continue to pursue other ideas.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it too, and the way that you talk about asking Claude, I think gets to this as well. But for me, the biggest hook for like, oh, this is something that I want to use and I want to like figure out how to use well, is the first time it feels like it really solves a problem that you have had. And so my recommendation, I think, if there's something about your work that you're like, this has been driving me nuts and I would like it solved,
Yeah, yeah.
that's also a really good place to start. You might not get to a solution, but the process of working toward that, like, you start to see what might be possible in other instances.
Yeah. And if you're lacking for ideas, just to kind of give people a couple of ideas,
Yeah.
something that I've embarked on is kind of like a side project, like something. So I think there's things there like you can use Claude Cowork to do a lot of like it's a task system at the end of the day. So think of AI search assistant as kind of like your brainstorming partner, conversation partner, bob in, bob out, like, continue to have a conversation with it, come back to it a week later, add some more information to it. Really great because it's kind of this like, it's like your, AI version of AIM chat. Like you're just chatting with them on a particular topic. I think Claude Cowork, the mental model, which you can still do this with Claude Cowork, but it really is around output. Like it's framed around creating something, whether it's a document, an analysis, a presentation, an app. Like it's like, what do I want to build? And then if the thing that you're going to build, if you're only going to use it once, like it's a PowerPoint presentation, fantastic. That's a great place to start, but it's sort of one and done. I think of the other side of that coin is like, what's something that I could use like literally daily, weekly, monthly, something that I could kind of automate, like some task, or even like some information gathering thing that I otherwise had to go and search 15 sites for and kind of click and get information. Like there's these things that we constantly do that you can put into Claude Cowork and say, here's kind of what I normally do, and there's got to be a better way to do this. How can I, like, help me think, help me plan, help me. So one of the mistakes I see people make is like use Claude Cowork, and it's like, it's because it's so task oriented, it wants to go build right away. And I tell people, actually give it instructions or put it in your global preferences as before you build anything, let's talk about your plan. Let's like talk about how you're going to approach this task so that we're aligned on the approach and the methodology, and maybe there's a better way, because I have pretty strong ideas about how it should execute, uh, but I also want to see how it might execute, and then kind of bring the human and the AI together to hopefully come up with like a better plan. So one thing that I'm doing and I'm automating is trying to build or building a little thing inside of Claude Cowork that Sunday night, Monday morning, um, it will look at my week. So it'll look at kind of the things I have on my calendar. It's looking at my Asana tasks. It's looking at, I have a personal to-do list that I've connected it to now, and helping me optimize my week of like, maybe I can block my time together. I should carve out focus time in these areas on my calendar. My vision for what I'm trying to build, though, is for certain tasks. When you talked about paying your bills, I have certain tasks that I'm like, I need to send this email. I just haven't gotten around to it. Like, I'll note it that I have to do this or schedule time with so and so. Administrative tasks, I'd love to have Claude look at that and execute those tasks without me getting involved, because they're very simple, discrete tasks. But I now have to click into Google Calendar, look at Alex's availability, type in a description. It's like, you know what? Like, I want my Jarvis to do that for me.
One of the things that I think is so interesting, and you touched on it in a lot of different ways, is how many of the things that it turns out is relatively easily to make happen in Claude Cowork would have been full-fledged startups of their own in like 2012.
Yep.
Like, yeah, fine. Like, okay, we've got this. Hello, Sharks. Our new company is gonna let you look at everybody's calendar and like automatically suggest times that work well for everybody, which by now is like a feature in calendar. But it's just so easy to like solve those problems on your own now, rather than like waiting for someone or something else to like come up with the ways to do it. You can kind of just hammer all that out in Cowork. Your example of like, how do I structure my week, is pretty similar to the first thing that I really did in Cowork, which was just create a little skill. And so skills are basically sort of the playbooks that Claude Cowork uses to like figure out how to approach a thing. So you can like
Yep.
chain tasks, etc. You can also have Claude Cowork write your skills, which is the real hack. So you don't
Super
have to
powerful. Super. It's incredible.
because it knows how to do it. It's it, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
real straightforward. But I created a skill that will first thing in the morning look at my day, go through my task list, and like see what all I have that has to go out the door that day. And then, because of the way that we have tasks set up, if I've been tracking my time, it calculates the time that I've already tracked against this project versus what we thought the estimate was, to like get a block of time that should be about long enough for me to get that task done. And it does that with all of my tasks all at the
That's
same time.
awesome. I want to
And
see. I want
then
this skill.
Samir, it looks at my calendar to see when I have meetings. It makes sure that I don't have a meeting that's related to a task, so I need to prioritize that task earlier, right? And if I don't have any of those, then what it does is it says, okay, he's got about 45 minutes left in this task. Block out focus time for him to do this task at that time. So
That's
theoretically, all
awesome.
I have to do is show up and like do the work.
Yeah.
Um,
and
which
frees
is,
up your brain. It frees up your, like, you free to
yeah,
focus on like the
exactly.
things that matter.
Believe it or not, if you have like a little bit of the ADHD, turns out to be super helpful to just be like, I'm a rifle, point me in the direction I need to go next, like, and just let me do my job, which is super helpful. The other thing that's so great about is it, like, everybody kind of knows that if I have focus time on my calendar, you can ask to schedule over that and I'll make it work, but like, don't automatically schedule over it. So if somebody's doing that thing of like, when does Alex have time, and I have 4 hours of meetings and 4 hours of work I'm supposed to do today, I don't have time. And the calendar, just like, that part of the skill really quickly lets me know I don't have time, and kind of lets everybody else know that I'm a little bit under pressure for a certain day. So it's great. And then, because it's developing AI, there are so many weird edge cases I've already found. Like, if I run it at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I have to go back and update the skill because it doesn't know that scheduling time for me at 11 a.m. that day isn't helpful, because that was 4 hours ago. So
Oh,
like,
that's interesting.
I
Yeah,
need
yeah,
you to like
yeah,
focus up a little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah, the skill, like, that's what I'm saying. I think the skills are constantly. It's like in life, right? Like if you
Mhm.
acquire a skill, yeah, you're like whatever, a woodmaker, what you're a carpenter. You continue to learn little tricks of the trade, right? You continue, that skill continues to get honed the more you use it. I think in a weird way, Claude is like that. You write the initial skill, and then you start to like it starts to learn. It starts to do things you don't necessarily want it to do. You have to put some more guardrails in, but it also like as you are invoking that skill without having to go and actually manually edit the skill file, you can feed it right back in and be like, hey, actually this is what I want, and this should really be part of the core skill file. So that there is this we're living in a. I tell people it's all about loops right now, like loop. Everything is just loops right now, and I mean AI foundationally is all about reinforcement learning, which is all loops,
Mhm.
and humans are also kind of built around reinforcement learning as well. So we're the better you can train Claude, and the better it can learn from you and the things that you want and you don't want. Um, is going to be awesome. And I think like it's amazing. It's an opportunity. It's also a little bit of a challenge when we've lived in a world where everything's been so SOPified. It's like, this is how we do X, and it has to follow this exact sort of recipe, which is great. But the world's changing where it's like, that recipe was great like 3 months ago, but by the way, there's like this new feature, or there's this new way, or there's this new way
Mhm.
to look at it, and we should incorporate that back into the skill. Um,
It, if you've ever tried to write like how-to docs for software or for a product that is like still in development, it
yeah,
is that feeling a little bit of like, well, we just got this through copy. By the way, that was 2 revisions ago. None of this applies. Start from
yeah,
scratch.
it is. I think that's like the biggest challenge right now for me is like I continue to like wanting to revise and improve, but I kind of like answer like there are like buckets. Like you talked about you and I both talked about a productivity bucket. Like do something in Claude Cowork that is touching a lot of different systems. It's looking at Asana, your calendar. It's looking at the context of the task. It's looking at, I don't know, maybe you'll learn Aura Ring, and it'll like look at like what your mood is. Like it can start to compute data by connecting to so many different systems to really optimize things. And so anything you can do on the productivity side, whether it be simple to something like the system you've designed, I'd say is like definitely like intermediate advanced, like not totally novice. But that I think is an easy place for people to start. The other area that I've been using it, and I didn't think I would use it like this, is actually educating myself. So I'm a pretty visual learner. And so if I'm trying to learn something within Claude Cowork, you can actually like in a weird way, I'm trying to learn Claude Code, but I know that I learn in a different style. Like I can't, I have I don't know if I have ADHD, but I can't sit for an hour. So
Right.
I had Claude Cowork build me my own interactive curriculum in 15 to 20-minute segments
Hmm.
with examples, and I had to check off those examples when I'm done, like actual like practical things I can do in Claude Code, and just kind of stepping through it. And then the next step is I'm taking that and I'm having it book time on my calendar, with the exact sort of lesson that I need to go do. But it's custom, and I told it like I learn a little bit differently. Like a lot of the stuff out there is great, but like I kind of like it a lot more simple, I guess, simple and practical. I want to like see, do, learn. That's kind of how I operate, and I think like that is a huge unlock. Even for other things, I'm like I don't know much about this, or I've read about this. Can't even like just Claude Cowork. We got skills, you got plugins, you got connectors, you've got Claude.md files. You've got all this new terminology you have to learn. So I actually had Claude Cowork build me kind of an interactive graphic to understand the relationship between all these new things, this new vocabulary, so that I'm like, okay, that connects to this and this connects to that. And it's a one-way connection, a two-way connection. And, just try to educate myself. And I think that is like the second big categorical use case that I think I don't know if you're using it like that. Like for me, that's been a big unlock.
I think one of the things that's so interesting about that and really is instructional for using this at all, right, is like after you've laid out that case of like I maybe learn a little differently, here's like my style, this is what's going to be useful for me. Once you get that first thing back, and whether it's like a study guide or infographic or like that's kind of to me always felt like a moment of truth for the user of what is your reaction when it's not what you wanted. There's one group of users I think that aren't the users for very long that are like grumble, 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 this didn't work, and then they don't go back to it again. And I think that like one of the core brain skills needed to really make this work is just to be like, okay, what specifically didn't work about it for me? And then you just tell Claude that, and the next version gets better. And you just keep like iterating that process as I punch my microphone. And that is really where I think whether we're talking about using this for personal stuff or work stuff or whatever, that willingness to like engage the tech on its own terms and not assume that it's some magic deus ex machina that's going to fix everything that's ever been wrong with your work life, and instead say, as much as I'm learning to use this tool, like you said, this tool is also learning from me, which means I need to give it good instruction as well. And I think that's such a great example of like tailor this to me. And then part of that is that I have to explain what my preferences actually are. You can't 100% read my mind on that. Great example. We're coming up on time. I did have one question, or maybe two more questions. We'll go quick. So first, the more straightforward one. Where do you think the gains are for like companies, or in our case clients, like to really start to see this kind of tech make an impact on more than just like, hey, my day got a little easier and maybe that means I can do it like a little more work, but like where are you looking for toward to see like the big changes in the way that we think about doing this kind of, like you said, knowledge work that we do?
So a couple of thoughts. One is like I look at things that have just humanly been very laborious, and I'd say the act of like collecting data or like sourcing data from different sources and then getting it kind of in a common, whether it's a common verbiage or a common data model that allows you to sort of connect dots. And we talk about this a lot at Iron, which is probably Uzaire's favorite saying, is we connect the dots. And that's actually been kind of hard to do. Like it's just been really, really hard to do because even in your personal and business lives, we all use like umpteen different applications. Businesses use like I don't know, 15 to 30 different applications to understand both prospects and customers and competitive research and all kinds of stuff. Not to say that those systems go away, but to run a like I'm going to run a report, I want to understand something that needs to cross connect between say 7 to 10 different sources. That would be typically a request you put into your data science team. Maybe get scheduled in a sprint. Maybe you get it in 2 weeks if you're lucky, maybe 4 if you're not lucky. And that decisioning that you want to make out of that study is like delayed by, 4 weeks. And God knows if you'd made that decision earlier, what that could have meant in terms of profit or revenue or whatever to your bottom line that mattered. I think if you kind of take that model and say, for knowledge workers in general, like, we're better with more knowledge to a certain point. Like, the moment we, like they say, like around 3 or 4 data sets is probably as much as the human mind can handle. You start adding the fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth data set. Usually you're like, oh, it's a point of no return, largely because like our brains can't sort of compute it and correlate it. And many of us lack the skills to kind of write some sort of program to correlate all that data. I think that this is kind of one of the biggest unlocks for knowledge workers is, wait a minute, I don't need to go ask somebody, and that somebody doesn't have to ask somebody for me to understand what's happening on this account or this customer or whatnot. I can sort of have Claude Cowork start to look across all these different data sets to run that analysis or make that decisioning or at least frame it for me. That to me, I think, is a big unlock. And whether you're in the content world, you're in the business and finance world, you're in the legal world, I think being able to kind of aggregate that information and then allowing you to interrogate that kind of content bolus or data bolus is like super profound. And I think that's only going to get better as the connectors get richer, the LLMs get smarter. I don't know if some folks will go down like, what will be decisions that they'll trust AI with versus not AI with. I think that's to be seen, but I do think that's a pretty big, one of, I think, the biggest unlocks is that. And then we talked about skills. I think skills are still really early on. But skills work really well with connectors. So like the skill maturation, plugin maturation, as that happens and you're able to actually codify certain things where you can asynchronously task them out to Claude Cowork, so that you're becoming not so much the aggregator per se or doing kind of the grunt work, but you're actually coming back and starting to synthesize and analyze and actually form your own opinions about certain things, um, uh, and ultimately make strategic recommendations. So yeah, I don't know. That's I
It's
think I think it's gonna be wild. Uh, yeah, it's just gonna be wild, I think.
Yeah, and speaking of wild, I get to ask a silly one at the end. What's the thing that you've realized you could do with Claude? That you're like, yeah, that feels too much for me for whatever reason. Um, I'll give you my example. I know for a fact that I could write a skill that would just answer all of my Slack messages all day long and I'd never have to look at them again.
Yeah.
Um, and like, apparently that's where I'm drawing a line, even though I do realize that it's very tempting. So I didn't know if you've bumped into anything where it's like, yeah, I could just not answer emails again. Um,
Haven't gotten that far. I kind of, that's a very interesting idea. um, I'd say that my brain right now is like focused on like trying to figure out what systems will work for us. So, as you know, you and I have worked on like doing competitive analysis or comparative analysis, and it's like a cool. I mean, I've been doing that since I graduated from college. Like, was like my first strategy consulting job, and talk about something that we still do kind of the same way. You still create a spreadsheet and you still take screenshots and you still kind of like, which is good. Part of doing the homework helps you get smarter. But I think like there's something where I like truly can systematize that process, but in a way that doesn't make you not smart, in a way that makes you smart, but more effectively smart. So, like that's where that's kind of, I guess it's a slippery slope between having Claude do that work for you and then you come and look at the results, but there is value in sometimes doing that work yourself because you kind of learn by doing. So I don't have like a clear answer as to like if I have like I weigh that with a lot of the things that I do want to automate, and where is that? I think that line is different for everybody, for individuals, for organizations. Um, and I'm probably not thinking about it creatively enough because I do think there's a way in which, I mean, pipe dream here, which is like it's doing all this analysis, but could it not just create like a 10-minute video for me and like I could watch all the screens it navigated and whatnot. I don't know if that'd be the same, but it just trying to think about different ways of accomplishing that work. Is like I get excited about that because I think that I still think in a very linear fashion, and as most people do. And I think the biggest unlocks, your Slack example is great. It's like kind of not linear. It's kind of like out of the box. And I would actually tell you to go build it, Alex, and run it for a couple of days
The
just
problem
to
with
see.
the
Just to
problem with
see.
me would be that, like, the amount of tone figuring out I would have to do. So it uses phrases like tone figuring out and not real words. And then the like appropriate amount of delay, because like it's gonna be at least 5 minutes before I respond most days, unless we're like having a conversation. The other thing I'll say, just because I love this example so much, you were talking about competitive research. It's really easy, and we've started doing it, to write a skill that you can say, go get me ebooks from these companies. Here's the email address to use for sign up. And then
Awesome.
Cowork can just open a Chrome window and go fill out all those forms for you. And then all those ebooks go to the same email address. And then you can just have Claude Cowork check only, like for me, it's alex.brown plus lists, because it's the
Mm-hmm.
old Google hack
Yep.
from
Yep.
15 years ago. And it just looks at everything that has that and is like, okay, that's where we're going to start working for this next thing that we want to do. So
Yeah, that's
I guess
awesome.
I'm
And that's,
recommending laziness as like a great way to start thinking about skills. And you said it too, but like, what's the stuff you don't want to do and have Claude do it for you?
yeah, I'm telling you, start with individual productivity, which is a fancy word of saying, what do you
Yeah.
not want to do of? And that Claude Code thing is incredibly wild. And in fact, saying if you want Claude to pay your bills, yep, that's what you do. You have it.
100%. The only problem is that I also have to give it my banking info and like
Yeah,
trust that it'll work out. Samir, we could do this once a week for a half hour. We won't put people necessarily through that, but if they want to learn more, either from you directly or from Iron Horse in general, well, for Iron Horse, you can go to ironhorse.io. We've got a lot of blogs and stuff. New stuff always coming out there. But if people want to get in touch with you, I assume LinkedIn is the best place, unless you have.
LinkedIn's a really good place. Maybe we'll figure out how to spawn some sort of I don't know, user group or newsletter. I think like one of the things I've learned, and we're doing this internally, is just trying to build more publicly. We're
Mhm.
doing it obviously within our pilot group, and I'd say that I learn. People come to me and ask me questions about how is this going to work in Cloud, and I'm like, I don't know. I haven't really actually. That's a good use case. I haven't tried it myself, so actually just ask Claude. Like
Yeah.
almost use it, and see if it works, and then and actually just build it. Like the cost of building is really not very expensive, so I think that one of the things is like that mental hurdle. So anyways, my final thing is build, baby, build. Like just keep on building, and you're gonna fail a lot. You're gonna succeed some, and then share. Because I actually learn a lot by following people online and Reddit and whatnot. And I've even shared like how we've onboarded our pilot group to some folks in a community, and they're like, "Oh, didn't think about having them back up their stuff." I was like, "Yeah, that's a really important thing to do."
Turns out. Well, awesome. Samir, thanks so much for your time. Everybody else, thanks for joining us. We'll be back relatively soon with another chat from some more super smart people at Iron Horse and just around the internet in general. Until then, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Alex.